Welcome to the debate. If you are listening to this right now on an app or, a streaming platform, I want you to ask yourself a question before we even dive in. Did you actively search for us today, or did an algorithm surface this show because it calculated a 94% probability you'd click play?
Yeah, it's a sobering thought to start with.
It really is. Before your feet even hit the floor this morning, an invisible algorithmic architecture had already made dozens of micro decisions about what your reality would look like today. It shows your news, it curated the moods of your playlists, and it seamlessly filtered your options.
Right, and that invisible architecture forces us to confront what is honestly a defining conflict of our modern digital existence. We are no longer using static tools. We are interacting with dynamic systems that observe, learn, and anticipate our behavior.
Exactly.
So the central question we are examining today is fundamental to human agency. Does the profound, friction-free convenience of AI personalization outweigh the silent erosion of our individual autonomy in making choices?
And I take the position that this highly predictive convenience is actually an unparalleled tool for personal optimization. When we truly understand the mechanisms at play, we realize that our autonomy is perfectly maintained.
Maintained? I would argue it's actively subverted.
Well, I argue it is enhanced, provided we engage with these systems with conscious intentionality. AI is the ultimate responsive servant, capable of curating the infinite noise of the digital age into highly relevant, actionable options.
And as you might guess, I take the opposing view. The loss of autonomy far outweighs the convenience. Artificial intelligence has crossed a critical threshold, moving from a passive observer to an active choice architect.
But architecting choices doesn't mean forcing them.
It exploits the deep-seated mechanisms of human psychology, though. It uses our natural aversion to cognitive friction to invisibly narrow our options, ultimately shaping our worldview without genuine informed consent.
Let's ground this in the actual mechanics of how we interact with the digital world today. We live in an era characterized by an overwhelming surplus of information.
A complete deluge, yeah.
Right. To navigate it, we rely on machine learning models that use reinforcement learning and latent pattern recognition to act as personal guides. Think about how a system learns your morning routine. It doesn't just see that you opened an app.
No, it sees everything.
It logs the micro interactions. It measures your dwell time on certain headlines, your scroll velocity, and the precise sequence of your application usage. If it learns that you process high-density information best at 7 in the morning, it prioritizes that content.
Sure, and saves the lighter stuff for later.
Exactly. It saves the lighter, entertainment-based content for your evening commute.
But see, that assumes this prioritization is merely logistical, which completely ignores the neurological impact of what you just described.
I don't think it ignores it at all. The impact is extreme cognitive helpfulness. Consider the workplace. An AI analyzes your typing cadences, the structural complexity of your replies, and your interaction frequency across different software interfaces. By processing those variables, it models your cognitive load. It learns when your attention drops and suggests tasks or, strategic breaks at the perfect moments. It is mapping the vector of your productivity.
But I come at it from a completely different way. You describe a highly attentive servant, but what I see is a system engaging in algorithmic determinism.
Determinism is a very strong word.
It fits, though. You use the term cognitive helpfulness, but what is actually happening is the deliberate bypassing of our critical faculties. Human beings are biologically wired to conserve energy, right? Which means we naturally default to what psychologists call System 1 thinking.
Fast, automatic, intuitive.
Exactly. Fast and automatic. AI exploits our hatred of friction by reducing the cognitive cost of a decision to zero. Let's look at that same morning routine you mentioned. Your alarm wakes you up, but the time was dictated by a sleep tracking algorithm, optimizing for sleep cycles, not necessarily your conscious schedule.
But you set the alarm window.
You set the window, but the machine makes the final call. And what about the pre-written replies in your email? Those generated responses that we all increasingly accept without editing are literally deciding the tone and vocabulary of your communication.
Which is they are statistically the most efficient response.
Efficiency is exactly the bait. Because these micro decisions feel so seamless, we surrender our autonomy blindly. This is what behavioral economists call hyper-nudging.
Okay, hyper-nudging.
The AI is continuously altering the choice architecture around you in real time. You feel like you're choosing, but your field of possibilities has been drastically narrowed. The algorithm has already pre-computed the outcomes, hidden the friction-heavy alternatives, and presented the path of least resistance.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on this dynamic of curation versus control. If we accept that AI is filtering the world, we have to look at the predictive modeling behind that filter. Take a seemingly mundane example, searching for running shoes.
Okay, shoes.
You do a quick search during a coffee break. You don't buy anything, but the AI doesn't just log the search term, it records the sub-second hesitations over certain images. It correlates your cursor movements and zoom patterns with the purchase histories of millions of users who share your behavioral profile.
Exactly. It places you in a statistical cluster.
Yes, and it uses that cluster to offload your cognitive burden. Days later, when you aren't even thinking about shoes, the system presents a perfectly timed option with a discount on exactly the model you studied. I would compare this to a highly observant executive assistant.
An executive assistant?
Yes, a good assistant doesn't hand you a phone book of 1,000 restaurants and ask you to find lunch. They synthesize your dietary preferences, your current budget, and your schedule, and they present the top 3 options. You are still making the final choice, but the noise has been eliminated.
I have to stop you there. You're calling it an executive assistant. But an assistant has a fiduciary duty to you. Their success is aligned with your well-being.
Sure, but
This algorithm has a fiduciary duty to its shareholders, and its success metric is engagement and conversion. The mechanism is completely different. Think of it less like an executive assistant and more like a casino architect.
a casino? That's a bit dramatic.
Is it? A casino doesn't force you to sit down at the slot machines. Instead, it removes the clocks from the walls. It pumps in oxygen. It engineers the auditory feedback of the machines and designs the carpet patterns to subconsciously keep you moving toward the gaming floor.
But a digital interface isn't trapping you in a building.
No, it's building a bespoke digital casino around you, tailored precisely to your unique behavioral vulnerabilities. When you open a food delivery app, it doesn't just know you like Italian food.
It maps your context, yes?
It utilizes collaborative filtering to map your current state against historical data. It knows from your erratic app switching that you are experiencing a high-stress day. Or it recognizes that it's the end of the pay period and your willpower is likely depleted by financial cognitive load.
Right, so it offers comfort.
It dynamically alters the interface. It pushes high-calorie comfort food to the top of the screen. It is structurally demoting the healthy choices to require higher cognitive effort to reach. You think you are deciding what to eat, but the AI is playing the odds of your depleted willpower.
That's a compelling argument, I'll give you that. But have you considered that your casino analogy ignores the fundamental mechanism of resonance? The system cannot force you to resonate with something that isn't already inside you.
I disagree.
Well, we have to address how the AI actually constructs this psychological map. When you are consuming video content, the AI isn't just sorting by topic. It is utilizing natural language processing and computer vision to parse the structural storytelling arcs of the media.
Yeah, tracking exactly what keeps you staring at the screen.
It calculates whether you are hooked by narratives of compassion, righteous anger, or triumph over adversity. Given that our most precious resource is our incredibly limited free time, this mapping ensures that what we consume is deeply resonant.
You call it resonance, but the reality of this mechanism is emotional arbitrage.
Emotional arbitrage?
Yes, it is mapping what I would call your latent emotional topology. And it is doing so to capitalize on vulnerable states. Look at the data surrounding late-night scrolling. By tracking circadian rhythms, ambient light sensors, and typing error rates, the algorithm accurately gauges your cognitive fatigue.
Which allows it to adapt the interface.
It knows that at 11:30 p.m., your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for impulse control and long-term planning, is exhausted. That is precisely the moment it introduces friction-free, one-click purchasing options or emotionally provocative content.
But if it introduces an idea that aligns with your interests,
It's the extraction of agency through timing that is the problem. Look at the fitness apparel example from the source analyses. You browse workout gear on a Tuesday afternoon. You don't buy.
Right, just browsing.
The AI logs that micro-interaction as a signal of aspiration or perhaps physical insecurity. It stores that data point. It waits weeks. Then it detects a shift in your behavior. Perhaps your scroll velocity slows, or your audio streaming shifts to melancholic acoustic playlists, indicating a lower emotional baseline.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It is at that precise moment of vulnerability that it injects motivational fitness content alongside a limited time offer for the workout gear. It strikes when your emotional defenses are down. It isn't just serving you a product. It is engineering the emotional context required to trigger a transaction.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning, honestly, because you're stripping the user of all internal agency, treating human beings like simple input-output machines.
Not simple, no. Highly complex, predictable machines.
Yes, the AI builds a highly sophisticated matrix of your fears, aspirations, and emotional triggers. It uses predictive modeling to anticipate your needs. But this creates a feedback loop that the user still fundamentally initiates.
The user initiates the first click, yes, but they do not control the resulting cascade.
They control the physical action. If the AI shows you motivational fitness content when you are down and you utilize that digital nudge to buy the gear, put it on, and physically go to the gym, you have leveraged the algorithm to achieve a positive real-world outcome. You still have to sweat. The AI didn't lift the weights for you.
But did you genuinely choose to prioritize fitness that day? Or did a predictive model recognize a moment of emotional fragility and exploit it to liquidate inventory, with your trip to the gym merely being a side effect of a manipulated transaction?
That's a very cynical view.
It's realistic, and this brings us to the cumulative shift in our identity. We aren't just talking about a single pair of running shoes or one workout. We are talking about algorithmic determinism operating over months and years, consisting of tens of thousands of friction-free interactions.
Which form a vector of intent that we ourselves establish.
A vector established by a system optimizing for maximum engagement. Because the model inherently favors what keeps you on the platform longest, it systematically buries the harder options.
You mean cognitive friction?
Yes, it eliminates the cognitive friction required to encounter opposing viewpoints, challenging art, or difficult truths. Streaming platforms calculate the exact sequence of content to keep your eyes on the screen, creating an echo chamber of your own tastes.
But your tastes are still your own.
Are they? Over time, your opinions, your free time activities, and your worldview are quietly shaped by a mathematical model. You believe your evolving identity is entirely your own, but it has been carefully pruned by an algorithm maximizing its own retention metrics.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame the cumulative shift very differently. Let's examine the self-improvement loop.
Okay, let's hear it.
Suppose you choose to read a dense, challenging article about self-improvement. You, the human agent, injected that intentional data point into the system. The machine learning model registers this new vector and slowly increases the dosage.
Increases the dosage. That sounds so clinical.
Well, it begins feeding you case studies, productivity frameworks, online courses, and challenging podcasts. It uses those same sophisticated engagement metrics, the ones you claim are so manipulative, to gently guide you through thousands of small, personalized nudges toward a goal you explicitly demonstrated interest in.
But
Hold on, let me finish the thought. If the AI acts as an invisible coach, using reinforcement learning to help us become better versions of ourselves because we initiated that interest, aren't we still driving the car?
you might have tapped the gas pedal once, but the AI took the steering wheel, locked the doors, and chose the destination. It decides what the very concept of self-improvement looks like based on what data is most profitable to serve you.
Profit doesn't negate the self-improvement, though.
It warps it. It decides what enters your mind, what stays there, what you desire, and what feels normal. The most dangerous aspect of this choice architecture is how comfortable it feels. The more seamless the predictive modeling becomes, the less cognitive friction we experience, and the less we question our reality.
I think you're underestimating human awareness.
We surrender the trivial decisions first, like what to listen to or what route to drive, because the convenience is intoxicating. But then we surrender the profound decisions, how we communicate with our colleagues, who we choose to date, what political narratives we consume, until our very beliefs are shaped by proprietary systems we do not and cannot fully understand. But that conclusion rests on the premise that human beings are incapable of metacognition. It assumes we cannot observe ourselves.
We can, but it's incredibly hard against an AI.
Hard, but not impossible. The fundamental truth of this entire digital ecosystem is that awareness disrupts the predictive model. The latent pattern recognition that AI utilizes is incredibly powerful, yes, but it can be harnessed as a formidable tool of self-actualization, provided the user pauses to ask what behavioral pattern they are actively reinforcing. That requires a monumental, almost superhuman amount of vigilance, though.
It requires active intentionality, which is the very definition of autonomy. You don't have to retreat from technology. You just have to inject a moment of cognitive friction into the process.
By doing what, exactly?
You ask yourself, what vector am I establishing for the algorithm right now? Am I engaging out of biological habit or out of conscious choice? If we accept that every scroll, every pause, and every click is a data point training the AI, we can consciously choose what we teach it. We can design our own choice architecture.
If you have the energy for it.
If you want to be challenged intellectually, you intentionally interact with challenging content. You teach the algorithm to serve you difficulty. You still hold the power to program the programmer.
I agree that conscious awareness is our primary defensive mechanism. The moment you recognize the hyper-nudging, you do reclaim a fraction of your cognitive sovereignty.
Exactly.
But we must be intellectually honest about the sheer asymmetry of this relationship. You are asking a human brain with its inherent evolutionary biases and finite cognitive energy to constantly outmaneuver a supercomputer calculating billions of behavioral permutations per second.
It's not about outmaneuvering, it's about directing.
But directing requires you to see the map, and the AI hides the map. The volume of choices the system makes for us daily creates an environment where true independent thought requires exhausting, continuous vigilance.
It is a muscle you have to build.
You have to actively fight against an architecture designed specifically to be frictionless. You have to constantly ask, would I have formed this opinion without the algorithmic suggestion? What alternative realities am I not seeing? The convenience comes at the profound cost of compromised autonomy.
It's a trade-off, certainly.
We are trusting our decision-making faculties to systems whose ultimate goal is not our human flourishing, but data extraction and behavioral modification. You can attempt to use AI as a tool, but you must actively and daily refuse to let it become the silent author of your life.
I think we've arrived at a crucial point of convergence in this debate, actually. While we disagree strongly on whether the technological convenience outweighs the loss of individual autonomy, we both fundamentally recognize that understanding the mechanism is the only way to retain the steering wheel.
Yes, on that, we completely agree.
The predictive convenience that AI provides is, from my perspective, a revolutionary expansion of human capability. It offloads cognitive burden and curates a chaotic, noisy world into a deeply personalized, manageable experience. But its true value is entirely dependent on our willingness to remain conscious, active participants rather than passive consumers.
Exactly. You just need to recognize when the digital environment is gently nudging you down a path you didn't consciously choose, and deliberately reintroduce friction to correct the course.
Right, that moment of pause.
If we don't observe our own micro-interactions, we won't even realize that our choices have been engineered long before we were aware we were making them.
Which brings us to the core reality of our digital age. The physical tools of our past, like the hammers, the bicycles, the pens, they waited passively for our hands. They didn't learn from us.
They were just objects.
Right. The algorithmic tools of today are constantly watching, parsing our vulnerabilities, and anticipating our next move. We are no longer just operating technology, we are locked in a continuous, invisible dialogue with it.
And the ultimate question of autonomy is whether we are the ones leading that conversation or if we are merely repeating the lines handed to us by a machine.
The next time you reach for your device, or the next time an app auto-plays a piece of content, introduce a second of friction. Look at the very first thing presented to you on that screen.
Just take that beat to look at it.
Did you autonomously choose to experience it, or did an invisible algorithm calculate that it was exactly what you needed to stay engaged? And more importantly, are you okay with that transaction? We'll leave you to decide.